Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for the final webinar in our Back to Basics series brought to you by the EdTech faculty at Canisius College. My name is Lauren and I am the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions. Throughout the webinar, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have using the questions box on your screen. We'll be monitoring those questions and answering them as we go through. We'll also save some time at the end to answer any final questions that you have. So I'll hand it over to Jason now so that we can get started.
Hello. This is a Google presentation on applications in the classroom. Okay. Today, we're going to offer practical applications that I've used in my classroom, Google Drive and Google Classroom, which can be applied then to all grade levels and curriculum. I have found in my own classroom that Google Drive and Classroom have been absolutely phenomenal when creating and communicating and sharing resources, not only with students but with colleagues as well. My student teachers, obviously I can share my curriculum with them, we can edit documents live, and same thing with my students too. The session also will describe Flubaroo. It's a forms add-on that allow you to actually create self-graded assessments. And if there's time left over, I'll show you even how to do a research project that I've actually used for 7th graders. Okay. My name is Jason Starr. I'm an adjunct professor at Canisius College in the Graduate School of Education in the EdTech program. We've got some phenomenal courses, and the degree program actually allows you to become certified as a technology integration specialist in the school districts, and knowledge of the Google Classroom and Drive and these applications will be very helpful for you securing a new position. The districts, in my opinion, actually are moving in this direction. More and more Chromebooks are being purchased, and they're looking for teachers who are going to be able to use them and return their investment. Chromebooks are actually less expensive than traditional laptop computers, and they tend to last a little longer. There's less components to break down, and it only connects with the internet, which means that they have few moving parts. And when you connect to the internet with Google, you'll see that Google Drive and Google Classroom are extremely helpful for teachers and students to continue to learn. In addition to Canisius College, I'm also a teacher at Hamburg Middle School. I teach 7th grade social studies, which is early American history, from Native American culture all the way up through Reconstruction, the early part of our history. I love it. 7th graders actually are children, but they still want to please you, so you can do deeper thoughts with them as they transition into adulthood. And early American history is my favorite because, we have decisions that we make. We settle here, we conquer, we set up a government, we go to war with each other, and we're not reacting to Europe in the World Wars. So I really enjoy the characters and personalities, the concepts in early American history. And for a few years, I was actually a technology specialist for the Hamburg School District, and I initiated systemic-wide district programs for curriculum mapping and iSafe, which is internet safety and privacy issues across the district, as well as being invited to other classrooms to integrate new technology within their curriculum. Okay. What I'm going to be showing you here actually is going to be helpful for my 7th grade classroom. I'll show you some examples that I use in my curriculum, but also know that you can apply it to your own level and curriculum as well. So it can be scaled down for elementary and even more advanced for high school level too. So these are very flexible programs and ideas that can be used for almost any classroom. A few caveats before we get started. The school district actually must give and create an account for each student and teacher in Google in order for this to work. The Google account then is able to access Google Drive and Google Classroom and set up and manage the programs for the students. Gmail is a question. We're moving into Gmail account now for Hamburg. However, some districts, though, have not even looked at any Google accounts or even Gmail for their students. So in order for this to work really well, you need to have students and teachers accessible to Google Drive, Google Classroom, or even through Gmail. I'll show you in a little bit that when you grade students' tests and essays that are sent back to their Gmail account. So if you're not part of the Google system yet, the district needs to create individual accounts for students and teachers to access Drive, Classroom, and Gmail. Once you have your own Gmail account and you have access then to Google Drive, which I'll explain in a little bit, Gmail is actually email communication. It's actually typed text sent back and forth from one address to another. You can actually attach documents. I think we're all pretty familiar with email. But this Google email account now allows you to access Google Drive, which I'll show you on my folders in a little while. This space is free, and you can upload gigabytes of information. I think it's 15 for our district. But when you do that, you've released your intellectual property rights. So whatever you put in the Google Drive, it's Hamburg's district policy now that it is essentially Hamburg's. And I know Google has a very similar policy. I'm not an expert in copyright infringement, but I just want to let you know that once you put a presentation or a Google Docs up in the Google Classroom, essentially you've released your individual copyright protections, and it is now part of either your district or Google Classroom. Also, to make this work, your district needs to invest in internet access, wireless, Google Chromebooks that are made for Google by different companies like Asus and Samsung. You need to have Wi-Fi or internet wireless connection so that you can actually access the internet for each student. And the Wi-Fi network has to be large enough to actually have the kids access at one time on many different classrooms at one time. The devices need to be available for the students. The districts have actually moved in to bring your own devices where the students, especially in the high school level, have their own phones where they actually use their own cell phones actually in the classroom. Districts sometimes have moved away from that, and you purchase Chromebook carts for the teachers, which we'll talk about in a little while. A set of 30, for example, can be used by many different teachers. And please make sure, too, that when you access the internet and you have projects and tests and essays to go through the wireless system, make sure that you understand that the students at home may not have access to those homework assignments. Many students at Hamburg don't have internet access at home, and I offer my own time either through study hall or even through working lunch with the students to access the computer and the internet fairly. Kids need to have access time. So I give them an assignment on Monday, for example. It's due on Friday using the internet, and it gives them 4 days to find time in the school day or at home or even the public library to get their homework done, or a friend's house too. But just make sure equity is an issue for some families, and some students are able to access the internet only at school. Okay. Also, the process and procedures are different for every district, so make sure you find the passwords. One item that I had to teach my students was actually how to get on their Google account, use their Chromebooks effectively, and once they understand their username and password, 7th graders and usually the kids are much better adapted than certain adults who have, obviously need a little more time to adjust and to grow to these new technologies. Once the students actually have a Gmail account with the district, the teacher aides in the computer labs were very, very helpful for me. They set up the rosters ahead of time so I can actually access those students before the classroom started, so I can actually eliminate any issues with signing in the Google Classroom. We found out later, too, that the students can actually individually sign into my classrooms, which I'll show you in a little while how to use that. So the rosters are very, very important. And I even, during my first year, this year actually, using Google Chromebooks and the applications for Google, that my technician set up 2 false students, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, so that when my student teacher and I try to initiate new tests or essay projects or research, that I was able to not only post in a fake period, but also I could actually see those assignments as fake students so that he and I can be proactive with our learning. We can see what the kids are seeing. We can actually anticipate some of the questions they're going to have. And we can be very, very aware of the student perspective. So rosters could also include false students if your technicians are able to create one for you. And that's very, very helpful to not only log in as a teacher, but then log in later as a student to see their point of view. All right? And the cards are very, very important. We have 30 Chromebook cards. We have 3 cards in our building. And the more we have access to Google Docs and forms and slides and the Google applications, the more teachers are actually going to use the cards. So it's with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek that I share the successes because we'll be fighting for the cards essentially. And, you know, obviously it's slight humor there, but hopefully the district will respond and actually provide more cards for us in the future, and we'll be able to work together and sign them out. So just make sure that you have awareness that as we move through technology and success is actually breeding more success, that the cards will become more and more scarce. So if you have technology in your districts, the computer labs are helpful too. They can actually access it through any computer in the world. So whether you have Chromebook cards or iPad cards or actual computer labs, as we move into new technology, they'll become more in demand. So we're very excited about that because I think the kids have been very, very successful in my classroom. What is Google Drive? Google Drive is a file storage, much like a hard drive in the computer, but it's now accessible through the internet only. And you have access to space on the Google Drive with your Gmail account. So you can store files in the cloud and the internet. You can actually access them from any computer in the world. You can edit documents and share them with each other and present with collaborators as well to Google Drive. So, are there any questions so far before I get into the applications of Google Classroom?
No questions just yet.
Okay, good. That's fantastic. Please keep the questions coming. So I want to make sure that what I'm showing you actually is going to be helpful for you in your classroom. As you can see in the top left corner here, here's what my Google Drive looks like at Hamburg. I designed all my presentations and my tests and student worksheets within each curriculum folder. I started with letter. I always label it because when you don't have the labels and the letters in front of the letters, I go in chronological order from history, from, as I said, calendar, classroom guide, Native American culture, and maps, up through Reconstruction. So I keep the letters in alphabetical order in chronological history. So if you are proactive, you know, with your organization, I would encourage you to find some kind of system where you label them with letters. If you do numbers, once you get through 9 and go to 10, then it'll be out of numerical order. So I'd recommend using letters only, okay? Because 1 will be calendar and class guide. Number 10 will be next in line because it's 1, 0. So just a little caveat to let you know that organize your folders and having an idea of perspective where you're going to be with your classroom is very, very helpful. So I have all my classroom curriculum units labeled A through P. I start with calendar and class guide, and letter P obviously is Reconstruction and the final exam information. Within calendar and class guide, I have the calendar, the class guide, and I'll show you examples of what's inside of it. Okay? Google Classroom. It's a learning platform that allows teachers to actually share with the students any information, any teacher resources, either student notes, tests, presentations, rubrics, and even homework assignments as well. And it's a paperless way to collect information and homework essays, tests from the students as well. I'll show you those examples in a little while. Okay, so here's Google Classroom. And I logged in as George Washington. You can see the GW there, George Washington 20 at HamptonSchools.org. And you click on the plus sign to create your first class. So you just type in Google Classroom, for example. I just have screenshots of me, and I didn't want to have you guys go through a tutorial session. I just want to show you basically what I'm doing in the classroom, and then later I can give you some examples of some good videos on YouTube. There's also a great summit at Canisius College in August that actually will help you prepare and move into Google Classroom. Hopefully they'll be presenting there if they like a proposal. And here's what I've done so far. You can see the calendar, class guide letter A, all the way down to reconstruction letter O, and P is I added later is final exam. But these are curriculum units, and everything I give the students to help them succeed in their learning is actually located in each curriculum unit. So I have 120 students on my team of 7th graders, and they go through the same math, English, social studies, and science teachers. And then I've also got almost 5 of my class periods, periods 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, uploaded as well. And period 1 is actually the fake period. I don't teach first period, but that's where George Washington and Abraham Lincoln are, so they can be proactive in their learning. Okay? There's differences. So in the Native American units, let's say, for example, I only give the students access to their period classroom as well as each curriculum unit as we move along. So I only, at this point in George Washington's studies, we've only got the Native American unit. If you notice here, too, that Google Classroom does not organize the classrooms in order, okay, alphabetically. And I don't know why. That's one thing I mentioned to Google. So that's why I put things in alphabetical order, not only for myself to organize, but also for the students as well. So the kids will get every curriculum unit as we go along. And I'll show you an example of Native American unit, what I put in there. The image up here on the top is consistent with the test which I'll show you, as well as the information in Google Classroom, so the kids make the image connection. It's actually George Kaplan's portraits of Native Americans on the plains. If you look very carefully now, you can see that the first announcement right here actually is letter J. That's the test. I've actually taken my Word documents from last year, and I saved it as a PDF file. You just simply go to File and Save As. You can change the file type, and as a PDF file, as an Adobe Acrobat file, the PDF is with the shortcut, the file extension name. The students cannot change the file. If it's a PDF, if it's like a Google Docs or a Word document, the students can edit the document. So we have to be careful of what we post and how we post it on the internet. So the test is actually posted online. That is the test at the end of the unit. I don't give them the answers, but I do post the questions to them. If people have discussions with me about this all the time, I don't teach for the test. Thankfully, it's social studies will have a state exam, but even if I did, I would not teach for the test. I want my kids to be successful. And showing them the test ahead of time and encourage them to actually study with their notes, which I posted down below, is extremely important for me, to learn how to actually use information, to make the decisions to study and to prepare. And then they can use their notes for 5 minutes during the actual test themselves. They can't answer all the questions and they realize that, but they can go back and check some of the questions they actually have questions about. And then obviously in parent conversations, when we have let my kid fail, I can say, well, I do what I can for the kids, eventually it's going to come from them. So it actually covers myself in many different ways. So the test is posted first and foremost, the first announcement. Then down below, letters A through I are all the different materials that they need to actually help them study for the test. The first one is geography worksheet, which talks about geography of the United States across the continent. We talk about the sacred wreck and how we appreciate culture and avoid ethnocentrism. Then we have the inference worksheet where we can try to guess and see how the lives will be shaped by geography before technology. Then D, E, F, G, and H are the 5 nations that the students actually are presenting in research. And then I offer these presentations as videos to help the students review their own work. And then I have the Native American review chart, which is actually a combination, a summary of the actual notes in the videos. And I use Snagit to actually create videos from my PowerPoint presentation. So even now in June, when the kids are studying for their final exam, they can go back to the old tests, the old notes, and even watch the videos of the lessons that I created for PowerPoint presentations. And hopefully the kids will make the decisions in June to study for the final exam and do well. All right? So that's the first way I use Google Classroom. Every curriculum unit then is accessible as we move from September through June, and it's one at a time so the kids don't get overwhelmed. Okay? Any questions so far?
No
Show them the
questions.
test. Okay. Show them the test questions ahead of time. There's not one job on this planet where you're not aware of what's expected of you that day. And the classroom should be no different. Whether you're, McDonald's fry cook or whether you're a brain surgeon, you know how you're going to measure success that day. You know what's expected of you. And the classroom should be no different, I feel. And my students respond very, very well to this. And they usually do very well in the test, which is fantastic. The next way I actually use Google Classroom now is I create class periods for every student. So I would have maybe 120 members in Native American classroom, the 7th grade students, but I only have about 25 or so students in period 1, whatever period they actually have. And within period 1, for example, I actually offer the entire tests and assessments and homework assignments. So whatever the students are doing and using together in the classroom is an appropriate curriculum unit. But if it's an assignment or an essay or a test, that goes into their specific period. Okay, and I'll go over the actual forms and how we actually take tests in my classroom using the Chromebooks later in the presentation. So here's period 1. The kids actually will log in, and they will actually then click on the Google Forms and take their test. Okay, so there's no paper and pencil multiple choice tests in my classroom at all. They would click on the Google Forms, for example, and this is what they would actually see. I copied and pasted the old tests that I had from a Word document and simply just pasted those questions and answers into Google Forms. I'll show you that this is a screenshot, but I'll show you a live document in a little while. Always put the first name and last name. These little stars here represent a required question, so they can't actually skip over it accidentally. You see the Google Forms shows the entire test. I know that my district uses eDoctrina, which shows one question at a time. So the kids are at a disadvantage with that software at the moment. They might change it, but I enjoy encouraging the students to use literacy skills, to use the questions to help themselves with other questions. And Google Docs allows you to do that. And with multiple choice questions, which I'll show you right here, they can actually, on the back end, I can actually shuffle the question order. I don't like to do that because I'm a history teacher and I want to go things in chronological order of their notes. But you can also shuffle the random order of their answers too. I also have an opportunity for extra credit to do some current events. So for every test, for example, we talk about the election results, what happened previous week, or what's going on in the Middle East, for example. That's a way for me to get connected with the kids. And also a riddle. So I ask them a question that stretches their imagination a little bit. And then the submit button's right there. And on the bottom right corner, you see the 100% that you made it. That means that the kids can see how many questions they've answered. And the stars, again, are going to be the questions that are required so the kids don't forget any questions. I want you to notice, too, that within the Google Forms, I can actually then give them an indication of where the notes will be to help them with their question. You can choose not to give them the subheading, but the society pages right here of the notes will help them figure out the right answers when they have to open notes time for 5 minutes. Okay? Any questions so far?
No questions.
Okay. I'll show you how to do a live form in Flubaroo in a little bit. Okay? The answers are collected from the form onto a spreadsheet. So you can see right here, this is actually a Google spreadsheet. And I erased the students' names for privacy reasons, but here's what I see in the back end. And I'll show you Flubaroo in a little while in the live document, and it'll measure based on what my answers are. And I can grade 120 tests that have 50 questions each one in less than a minute. Okay, and it's just absolutely changed the way I teach and how the students learn. They really enjoy taking the test on Flubaroo. You can see here I've done this many times, but on Flubaroo, it'll actually identify certain questions where the kids didn't do well. And I found myself actually changing the answer key. I did mistakes on the answer key, and this is a great way for me to check my own work, as well as to see the concepts the kids may be struggling with as well. I can even check on the boxes to email grades. So that's where the Gmail accounts come into play. The students actually get their scores electronically. And when I gave my first tests through Google Classroom and Chromebooks, I asked my students if they liked using this or paper and pencil tests, and overwhelmingly they enjoyed using the Chromebooks rather than, you know, paper and pencil or Scantron. And in addition, the students actually performed better. Not only the scores themselves, but the same test last year, paper and pencil, it took my students 5 to 10 minutes less this year with the Chromebooks because they went through it faster and they were more accurate. So again, it's more time for me then to teach, to add more questions, to make the actual test more valid. It's truly incredible watching these kids work. And the email grade is absolutely important too. One of my students said they enjoyed taking the Chromebook test because they didn't have to tell their friends what their grades were. So it's a way to be anonymous with their student scores. I mean, when you pass out papers, for example, the first thing the kids do to each other is, oh, what'd you get, what'd you get, what'd you get? That's a form of bullying, actually. I didn't realize that until this year. Students' grades are then emailed behind the scenes. There's no scores. There's no pressure of answering questions from their friends. And it's just been such a great experience all the way around. I never even thought of the benefits, and it's been phenomenal for the kids and for me. Total points possible, average points are right here, and you can actually download the spreadsheet, and then, you know, if you want to multiply it by 2 or by 3, you can do it very easily, and then put these numbers into your gradebook, whatever you guys are using as far as, you know, eSchool or whatever you're using. So Google does not have a gradebook, and they won't. I'm glad they don't, because, you know, it can be cumbersome using it. So once you get the scores, I like going through the scores and actually then typing them into Google, I'm sorry, the either Trina or eSchool data, because I check the work. Okay, I don't just accept the Google scores. So are there any questions so far before we get started with the actual live demonstrations?
I don't have any questions just yet.
Okay, good. All right, it's good. We have about half an hour left. So let me get out of the presentation here. This is my Google Drive. Oops, earlier. Sorry. For Canisius, okay? And for Flubaroo, I want to show you how easy this is to actually create the form. If you notice, this purple symbol is actually a form. And then the form answers are collected into a spreadsheet, which is the green form here. And you want to click on a new form, just click on New and go to Form. Oops, and go to Form. Okay. The untitled form, let's say, you know, that's the example. Okay. And you can choose, okay, different question titles. Okay. You have a Microsoft Word document. You can copy and paste this into Word. You can even choose a different type of question you want. I would not recommend using short answer or paragraph. I made the mistake earlier in my test to actually do a word bank, and the kids actually have to type in the actual word to finish the definition of culture, and misspellings and capitalization are very particular with Flubaroo. You can adjust to include other answers for their questions. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. But if they spell the word culture wrong, then Google Forms will mark it incorrect. And it's our job then to go back and make sure that you offer half the credit because it's the right answer but the wrong spelling, and that can be a pain in the neck sometimes. So I'd recommend only using multiple choice questions for actual tests, because then there's no ambiguity about the test answers. You can use check boxes or drop down depending on what you want to do. So I use first question is going to be obviously their name, so that'll be a short answer so the kids can actually type their name. Okay, first name, last name, I usually do. Then I copy the question itself, okay? And this is very easy to do, because now once you get the right format, for example, let's say for example you want to do the next one's going to be multiple choice, okay? Let's say you want to have 3 different options here. Another option. Okay. Do you like this question format? Okay. You can just duplicate it and then just simply copy and paste it, the question from Microsoft Word, or type in and what happens now is that when you duplicate the question, you can change the question itself, but the options are still here. In other words, you have the formats the same. It saved me so much time to do this. And actually, okay, go through the multiple choice, go through different options, for example, and once the format is correct for your answers, then you can actually then copy and paste that. It's much easier than to use the questions that way. Okay. Now, if you notice on the bottom here, you can make it a required question. I did not do that up above, and I should have, because it actually helps me keep the format the same for all the questions. This right here, you can actually delete the question if you want to. You can actually reorder the actual option order. Okay. And if it's a multiple choice question for a test, it'll collect these answers then into the actual spreadsheet. So responses then, if you go back to these little circles right here, select the response destination, then it'll say, okay, create a new spreadsheet, or select an old one, test example, responses, and create. Now, in Google Drive, the test itself on forms will be right next to test example spreadsheet. And the question I just typed in here at the top of the page. Okay? Are there any questions so far?
Not at this time.
Okay, good. Please ask questions if I'm going too fast, okay? Now, what Flubaroo will do is you have to go to add-ons, and you have to go to get the add-on itself. It's called Flubaroo, F-L-U-B-A-R-U-O-O. And just type in this. And hopefully it'll come up. There it is. And then just simply, you'll see the word probably install. I have the word manage here, so I've already installed it. Okay? And once you send out the test to the students, okay? That's this test I gave to the students. I could then go back and look at the responses, okay? And it'll give you an idea of how the students actually responded to the each question. It's an item analysis, okay? And I have an example now of what the sheet looks like for my 7th grade students, and I actually got rid of all the names. So when you go to add-ons here, there we go. Okay. If you go to Flubaroo, for example, take a little moment to load. I've already answered the questions. So when you go to the test, for example, and this is you go to preview, okay? You can answer now the questions yourself, okay? And you must do that, okay? You can actually insert an image if you want to for a different, this is actually an image question. If you want a picture you want to actually include in the document, in the test itself, you can do that. You go through all these answers that way, right? Now, it'll record my answers in the sheet, just like you would for the students, including their first and last name, which I deleted because of the privacy issues. So I go to Flubaroo now, and I go to regrade assignment. Okay, it's going to replace existing grades, which is fine. So if you have a student now taking the test a few days later because they were absent, you need to make sure that you have the Chromebooks reserved for those students who are absent, or at least have a place to put the kids where a Chromebook or internet access exists. One thing I always try to do is I don't want to reserve a cart the next day after a test for 2 or 3 students because it'll take the resources from another classroom. But I always work with that teacher and say, listen, I have a few students who may take the test, you know, tomorrow on Wednesday. Would you please allow those students to grab a Chromebook quietly if they're not disturbing you? And they usually are very accommodating. So always remember to make sure that you have access to the Chromebooks for students who are absent the day after the test. Here's the actual Flubaroo in action. First name, last name, it automatically identifies a student, just fantastic. You can also have normal grading, skip grading, or grade by hand, which is new for them. So you got it. Okay, all these questions right here are going to be normal grading. You can adjust the point values if you want to. So this question is what, 2 points or 3 points or 10 points. You can do that. And all the way down, you have, you know, different questions. You can adjust the grade, the point value, and the multiple choice questions are all going to be the same type of normal grading. Using an email address identifies the student down here as well. So I always give them an option to have the grades returned to them, whether it's their own personal email or their parents. They can actually put in there too. Here are current events questions. So I should have actually then skip grading down here because it's bonus question. I can grade it later by hand. These are the different survey questions. I can skip grading here as well. And just for the first test, I asked them these questions just to make sure that the kids like what I'm doing. Otherwise, I got to change it. And then it's loading, and I'll say, okay, now tell me which row is going to be the answer key. And once I identify my row, my answers, it'll measure all of the student responses based on those answers. Okay, and we'll continue that one. So now it's grading the assignment. And as we're talking like this, I want to just let you know that this is very flexible. Even if you're math, even if you want to include multiple answers or capitalization or misspelling, Flubaroo has the flexibility to do that. And it just takes a little bit of adjustment and a little bit of learning on Flubaroo to do this. Okay? Now, I went from student submissions over here to the second sheet, which will be created for the grading. Okay? And you can see here, the 4 aspects of culture are, and any one of those 4 answers could be used for that one, and it will mark the question correct. And here it gives you a good tip. If you're doing numeric ranges, for example, for science and math, you click on this to actually learn how to do it, and Flubaroo has phenomenal help sessions for you, and even YouTube videos for tutorials, which are fantastic. So here, all the students are now graded based on my answer key. I've done this many times now, and you have a percentage of what the students actually have done. And You have an item analysis you can actually then look at. And any grades that are, below 70% for each question, you can actually then highlight those and figure out, well, was the answer correct on the answer key? Did I make a mistake? Or is it a concept that I need to reteach? Or is it just a challenging question that, is good for the challenging, for challenging the higher level kids? Or is it, totally unfair? So that's a question you can actually answer, and it's very helpful for you. All right? So Flubaroo is very, very easy to understand and to use. Just got to create a new form and create a form, and then attach the sheet to it, and then use Flubaroo attached to the sheet. So Flubaroo is not part of the forms. Okay? Flubaroo is actually part of the spreadsheet. So make sure you know where you are. There's no Flubaroo attachment for the form. Okay? Just for the spreadsheet. Any questions so far?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, good. All right. So my drive, it's got a whole bunch of stuff in it. Now, wait for this to roll up here. What I'm going to show you right now actually is a way I used a research project for my 7th grade students. We studied slavery, and I wanted the students to understand the personal effects of history. It's called the inside-out approach, where you pick a person of the time period, and then you make larger connections to their life and their culture as the unit progresses. So you start small and go big. And we've assigned the students one of the 30 abolitionist leaders who undergone railroad conductors. And each student has their own individual they have to research. And part of the research then is to identify who this person is. Are they a fugitive slave running to freedom who became abolitionists later? Are they a Canadian who actually helped slaves begin a new life in Ontario? Are they abolitionists who wanted to end slavery? Or station masters? Or are they abductors like Harry Tubman, and they go to the south and bring slaves, fugitive slaves back to the north? So those are different colors, red, green, blue, and purple, so the students know right away who, what role the person actually has. These links are live, so if you go to John Brown, for example, you can go to this link, and it's right there. So lab preparation in the back end to create this form for the students, this research sheet for the students. I don't use a form or sheet. It's actually a PDF file, okay? And the live links are there. And what I do then is I actually ask the students to collect their research electronically. So, getting the railroad research notes. This is very similar to the form I just created using a test, for example. But instead of actually creating only one set of questions for all the students, I ask them to put their name in there, the period number, okay, and then who they're going to be researching. Right? And this type of question right here is actually a multiple choice question. And you can see that if they actually are introducing the video conference, you can create sections within the actual form. This is more higher level stuff, where the questions for one type of individual, the introduction, for example, is different than fugitive slave questions for their research. And those fugitive slave questions actually are different than the Canadians and abolitionists, as well as abductors, and even Harry Tubman of their own. So in other words, Once this form is live for the students, and they choose one of these selections right here, the form will jump down to the appropriate section where they have the questions they must answer for their research. They do not have to answer all the questions. They just have to answer the questions in the research section. And the students then will collect those answers in the form. So instead of actually answering A, B, or C, multiple choice format, these questions right here actually are long answers, paragraphs. And when the students submit their work, then it'll be collected in the back end with an appropriate spreadsheet attached to the Underground Railroad research notes. And it's been very, very successful. One thing I didn't mention to you, and I should have, is that if students are unable to finish their test using the form, or finishing their research notes using the appropriate form, when you have required questions, you need to submit the form to the teacher through Google Classroom. If the students aren't done yet, I encourage them to pick any answer or type in any letter in the appropriate questions over here to fool the computer into thinking they're actually done. Then in the back end of Google Classroom, I can return the assignment back to the students, and they can open it up again to revise their work and to finish their test. So in the possibility that some students won't finish a test of the research project, they can still go back and actually complete their work as long as they can submit their complete work to you. And that complete work could be essentially false information. As long as the computer thinks you're done, then the kids are good to go. All right? Make sense so far? All right. And then, once the students actually have gathered their information based on their research, okay, I show them the actual rubric they're going to be evaluated. I highlight the top scores. I don't want to, I mean, we're not going to rise to low expectations. So we're going to teach them the highest calibers, analysis, content, organization, graphics, focal quality, eye contact, pointer distractors, and movement. So that's what I'm going to teach them first and foremost, and I'm going to evaluate it. And this information is all posted on Google Classroom in the slavery unit, so all kids can access the information ahead of time. All right? And then I push out a template of a slideshow. This is actually a Google Classroom opportunity to use one more time. And again, you go to File, you go to New, Google Slides. It's very similar to PowerPoint, but just not as robust with some of the animations and transitions, which you don't need anyway for teaching a lesson, or the students are teaching their own lesson. So what I do now is once the students actually have their own research done on their person, I have this template that I push out, one for each class period. So in other words, I have a template for period 2, period 3, period 4, all the different class periods. I do simply, a copy, make a copy of it. Okay. Then I push out period 2's template through the period 2 Google Classroom. The kids are able then to edit the same file. In other words, if you notice on here, they have 30 different names. Each name has been accepted by a student, chosen randomly. So the William Lloyd Garrison example, you must design a slide based on your research that teaches the class, your peers, 7th graders, William Lloyd Garrison. And it's truly amazing because I promise the kids that if they're on Garrison and they have to teach Garrison everybody and you mess up Reverend William King's slide for someone else to do, I can go back to File and Revisionist History and reset the presentation. That means that students may lose their work, and they're very careful about what slide they're on. And as students are actually accessing their own slide, their names show up on the bottom here. And I know if John's not on the right slide, I can tell him, hey, John, get off the, the Reverend King slide and get to William Lloyd Garrison. And I show them this, and they can see it on their own, that they can tell who's on their slide. And it's truly amazing. The only issue I had was when the students try to, revision history here. When the students actually are on their background, they accidentally click on Add to Theme, and that changes the background for all the slides. And I found out, too, they can just do a Control-Z or go backwards, and they can undo their error. And it's really easy to do. So some kids actually panic when they make a mistake, but it truly is a good thing if they're panicking, first of all, because they care about not messing anyone else's slide up, but they're only getting in trouble. So it's a good sign. But it's also very easy then that once they make a mistake, to very quickly and easily then go back and change the presentation if they let you know soon enough. And this revisionist history actually allows you to see who's working on their projects later at night for homework and who's adding stuff. And one of my friends actually is one of the Chamber of Commerce members in Hamburg, and when I show them this project, it's very real for businesses today. No longer do they want 10 slides in a show. They only want one slide. They want to use the slide to enhance their presentation and sell the product that they're offering. Because businesses today are very, very quick. They don't have a lot of time. So this actually was very helpful for me to learn because now it's justified. Last year, I had a 10-slide show expectation for the kids. They had to save it as a certain file in the student shared drive, and it was difficult to access and log in, and it took a lot of time. Now, my students have only one slideshow. My computer has the projection attached to it, and they go through one slide at a time. They go up to the audience and teach William Lloyd Garrison. The slides are behind them. The images are there from the actual slideshow work that they have done and different sites that I gave them. And as far as I know, as long as it's behind a password-protected site, you are okay to use even copyrighted materials. This is educational behind a password-protected institution, which is what Google Classroom actually is. So I think we're all set. I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer for copyright violations, but I think we're going to be okay using different presentations with images. Okay, as long as you don't publish, the slideshow, you're good to go. So it was amazing watching the students work together to teach each other how to use slide as opposed to PowerPoint, and then actually present. And it saved so much time in my classroom. The kids actually use the images and the text behind them in the presentation, actually teach the project, and it was fantastic. I've had a period 2 here. Now, again, they don't have 30 students in the classroom, so you see some slides will be blank, but the slides are very, very different from each other. It shows their personalities and how they actually organize the material and information. I require them to have a website, citation cited, taught the paragraph, and it really is a fantastic way for the kids to learn about history from a more personal way. They're accountable for their own work. They work together. They have their own rubrics, and it saves so much time and management on my side as a teacher not to get involved with different folders and shared drives and everything else. It was just so much better for the kids to actually be successful this way. All right. Are there any questions so far about the presentation? About 5 minutes left, and I'll open the floor for any questions.
Yeah, so we just got a question. How much work and monitoring would you say you would have to do to maintain this?
Oh, I've spent many hours organizing the curriculum and creating the presentations through video, putting the old tests from Word into a file save as a PDF and posting them. That wasn't very hard to do. But again, it's the concept of how you want to organize your classroom, how do you want the kids to see your work, what's the end result, And it's still an ongoing process. I would say about 50 hours, but it's been since September. So as a new unit progresses, I spend about 5 to 10 hours, making sure that Classroom on Google is appropriate for the kids. And as you go through it, I mean, and again, copying and pasting the tests from documents to the forms took a little time to do. But once you get the hang of doing it, it goes by quicker. It only takes about a half an hour for about 50 questions or so. And once you develop your own system to copy and paste, it's a lot easier to do. But that was probably the longest part of the process, is to go from Word documents to actual Google Forms. You got to copy and paste it. But the teacher notes that I've had that I post for the students, it takes very little time to do. And the videos took a little time because I want to make sure I get it right for the kids. But since September, about 50 hours, about 2 or 3 hours for each curriculum unit that I've actually spent uploading and designing the presentations and the documents for the kids to use. But it's been well worth the investment. I mean, I've saved so much time in assessments and curriculum instruction. The kids have been more successful because it's so much easier for them to use because they're so young, and it's part of their culture and their life today that they are more successful. And I can do more things with them, more activities, more lessons, more learning, just because I have more time now because of the ease of this program and what I've done so far with them. And one thing I didn't mention this year, we've actually started moving into video conferencing. So when you have Google Hangouts, for example, I can connect with my student teacher who got a job in Saratoga. They can teach us Saratoga Battlefield, and we can teach them our local history of underground railroads, where this all started from. So we can actually video conference them. So now they have motivation to do well because they're researching now with a purpose. They want to do well because they're teaching other students, and it's been a phenomenal way to motivate them intrinsically to have pride in their work and to do well. So it's really been fantastic. That's one more thing that Google offers is Hangouts. It's free of charge, and you can actually connect with classrooms around the world. Okay.
Okay, do we have any more questions? You can use the question box on your screen to ask any question that you may have. Another question is there a tool that you're finding students enjoy more than another one?
They love the video conferencing. This is called Google Hangouts, right? You can see it here. And they really enjoy being involved. And not just Google Hangouts with students, other places. I connect with someone in Georgia. We talk about Civil War and colonial history from different perspectives. It's been amazing. But I also have the fortunate experience of knowing different college professors as well. And those professors have offered their time to connect with my students as well, and they love Google Hangouts. They prefer taking their tests on forms rather than the actual paper and pencil tests. And some tests actually have a hybrid where, because of the curriculum unit, I have to give them like the long answer, short essay, paper and pencil type tests, and they groan because they don't like doing it anymore. So they love Google Hangouts and the Google Forms. Google Hangouts is phenomenal, and CILC.org, Center for Interactive Learning and Collaboration, is one website where you usually go for content providers. In other words, if you log in for username and password here, Hangouts is a video conferencing software, but if you don't have any student teachers or any classrooms you can connect with, you can go to CILC, and they actually have listed for you museums, libraries, learning foundations, institutions that offer programs. And some of them are paid, some of them are free, but they actually will help you through video conferencing. And just a real quick story, I have about 30 seconds left. When I was at TOSA on special assignment as a technology integration specialist, I showed the software of Hangouts and CILC to a CSI elective teacher. They had crime scene investigations in the high school level for seniors as an elective. So we connected through CILC to the Cleveland Clinic autopsy morgue. And the professor, the doctor there, actually had a body on the table with a toe tag under a sheet. And they gave us information and materials to prepare for the video conference ahead of time, which is fantastic. So the students know what was going on and what to do and how to behave themselves. And then the professor was this typical, gray-haired, scruffy-looking gentleman, and the mad scientist look, and he was very serious. He said, "This is a murder investigation. We're seeing if the victim here is part of a violent crime. We're going to use this in court. There's evidence." And he went through the whole bit for about 5 or 10 minutes, very serious. And then he said, "First we're going to do is cut open his chest." They started the bone saw, and the guy on the table jumped off the cart and said, "I'm not dead yet." And everybody just jumped out of their chair because we didn't expect it. And then from there, it was just the best video conference I have ever had, where the students actually were engaged, they were laughing, they were learning, having fun, and it was just an incredible experience watching the autopsy go through, because it can be nerve-wracking and a little bit gross, to be honest with you, grotesque and graphic, but the kids really, the seniors really loved the experience. And we did one with the elementary kids at the Buffalo Zoo. Kindergartners actually made a toy for the big cats. So when they went to the zoo live, like an actual physical field trip, they threw their toys into the big cat's chamber, and the scientists in the video conference met them there behind the scenes. So it can be a physical field trip interacting with video conference too, if it's a local entity like the Buffalo Zoo, Museum of Science, or the Botanical Gardens here in Buffalo and Western New York. So they really enjoy the hangouts. I'm going over time here, but I'm really excited about sharing this with you, because it's not just the Google slides and forums for research and testing, but it's also connecting with other people and other cultures too. It was an amazing experience. And I hope you guys try Google Hangouts. Go to Yahoo and learn how to use Flubaroo. It really is easy to learn, and the results are amazing with the 7th graders, and I hope you guys can have the same successes. All right?
Great. Thank you so much, Jason. Everyone will be emailed the certificate of completion for today's webinar, and we'll also email you additional information about the upcoming Google Summit at Canisius College. So thank you again for attending.
All right. Thank you, Lauren.